Hey guys, Data Orchestration Guru here. Today I'm going to be going through a quick demo and kind of show you how to write a DAG so you can do batch predictions with data-driven scheduling. So what this is really good for is if you're trying to execute predictions on a machine learning model using Sagemaker. This is, assuming the Sagemaker models are already been created and you're just trying to do a one-time batch inference job using the Sagemaker batch transform. So really useful if you don't have a hosted model endpoint, want to run ad hoc predictions when that data actually becomes available. So really good for ad hoc jobs. And it's scheduled on a data set. So it's going to submit a batch transform job to Sagemaker, get model inference on that data, and then save those inference results to an S3 output. And then finally, those will be uploaded to Redshift using the S3 to Redshift transfer operator. So now that I've given you the background, let's start some coding. So the first thing we're going to want to do here, as we do with all of our DAGs, is import some packages. So first, just the basic Airflow DAG and dataset. And then from the providers, we're going to need the Sagemaker transform operator, as well as the S3 to Redshift operator. And then, as always, got to have that date-time package brought in. All right, so now that we've gotten our provider packages in, let's set some variables. So first, add the date, ds no dash, so you're going to import the current date. S3 bucket, this is just a dummy S3 bucket name that I'm going to put here. Your S3 key, so this is the key for that data set that's being used for the test data, as well as the output S3 key, so key for the model output data after the model's run. And then we also have a variable for the Sagemaker model name and a dataset URI that we're going to generate using S3 then the test S3 key. So we'll be using these throughout the DAG, but best practice as always, you want to set all your variables at the top instead of hard coding them into your DAG so you can easily change them. All right, now that we've got our variables set, let's set up the transformation config for the Sagemaker transform operator. So this is the basic config file we're passing to Sagemaker so it knows which transformations to run. First, we have the transfer job name, so pulling that test Sagemaker job and then adding the format dates. We know that we're running it at the current date. So basically just assigning a date to make it unique every time you run it. Then you'll have the transfer input. So in this case, we're having the S3 data source using that S3 bucket and key that we set in the variables up top. Then you'll need to define what type of content it is. So here, passing that its line and text CSV file, so Sagemaker knows how to read it properly. And then you have the transform output. So what's coming out of Sagemaker, where are we going to put it? Again, using that S3 bucket and output key we defined earlier. And then finally down here, you'll have your transform resources. So say how many resources or what instances you want Sagemaker to provision for this. We're using an ML M5 large and just one of those. And then you'll have your model name. So again, this is just pulling that model name that we inputted up there so it knows which model to use. Next, we get to do everyone's favorite part of Airflow, writing boilerplate DAG code. So here you'll see with this DAG, we're setting our DAG name, start date, max active runs. And then one thing that is cool here is the scheduler. So instead of using a typical time-based scheduler, we're actually going to schedule this whenever a data set becomes available. And that data set is going to be the data set that we create in S3 to be used by Sagemaker. So once that data set's available, the model can trigger without us needing to manually schedule it. As well, you'll have the default args. So in this, you'll need to reference your AWS connection ID. So make sure you add a connection ID to the Airflow UI and mark it as AWS Sagemaker or something else. Just make sure that whatever your connection ID is the same as what you're referencing here. And then we're going to add the classic catch up false and define it as a DAG. All right, now that we've got our boilerplate code out of the way, let's write our first task. So the first one is just going to be a simple predict task, passing that big transform config file we made earlier into that Sagemaker transform operator. So the actual Sagemaker transform operator, because we're using all these default args, doesn't require a lot within its DAG definition or task definition, but you do have to write that full big transform file before to pass into that so it operates properly. Next, what we're going to do is create our results to Redshift task, which is going to, exactly like it sounds, take that data that's coming out of the model into S3 and move it into Redshift. So the Sagemaker transform operator is going to spit that data out in that output bucket that we already defined. So then what we're doing here is creating a S3 to Redshift operator, selecting that S3 bucket that we're using using that output S3 key that we defined earlier so it knows where to look. Setting the schema public, so this is a Redshift definition, so it knows where in Redshift to put it. If you want to put it into a different schema, please be my guest. Choose which table you'd like to display this in. Results is just a natural file name, but if you want to do this sequentially, maybe you could add like a date time so every post is unique. And then your copy options are CSV, so it knows what type of file it'll be. And then when you're next, we'll show you what the bit shift operators are. So the bit shift operators are incredibly simple for this one. You're just going to have predict going into results to Redshift. So very simple DAG to set up, but really powerful for doing one-off data model transformations. So I hope you learned something today, and tune in next time. Have a good one.